Hello and welcome to another segment of Fundy Tidings. I'm your host Jay Remer, and my guest today is Pat Stafford from the Vibrant Communities Charlotte County.
That's right.
The coordinator thereof. And today we're going to discuss this exciting initiative that was really kicked off by the government really 4 years ago and has really taken hold. It's gotten some traction, especially in Charlotte County and really throughout the province. And so let's talk a little bit about how this got started and how really wonderful the initiative is, and then we'll talk about some of the specifics of it.
Okay, sure. The overall program called Overcoming Poverty Together, it's a provincial plan for poverty reduction, was developed as a result of a number of community dialogues around the province. And as a result of that, they established a Crown Corporation, an arm's length Crown Corporation called the Economic and Social Inclusion Corporation, to oversee the implementation of that poverty reduction plan. And as part of that poverty reduction plan, they recognized that community has a very big part to play in developing solutions to those challenges. And so they they established 12 community inclusion networks across the province. So the whole province is covered by a community inclusion network, and Vibrant Communities Charlotte County is the Charlotte County version of that.
Right.
So the local community inclusion networks were established to develop regional plans and to develop regional opportunities for kind of really moving the indicators in terms of poverty reduction.
Mm-hmm. So by dividing the province into 12 segments, that shows that there's a sensitivity to the differences within different segments of the province, and it also, I think, to my way of thinking, rather wisely, puts the real onus of the success of the program into the laps of the communities themselves.
Right.
And of course, that sort of takes away the big brother aspect, and so, which I think is a good thing,
Right.
especially when it comes to legislating issues around poverty is it's worse than herding cats, because it's also
so complex.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So yes, the Economic and Social Inclusion Corporation, in conjunction with the government, deal with the policy issues that need to be addressed. The increases in minimum wage were as a result of this poverty reduction plan. The implementation of a new program whereby low-income children had access to dental and vision healthcare services, that came from the poverty reduction plan at that level. And then the community inclusion networks work collaboratively with their communities to develop more regional opportunities.
Right. So those kinds of opportunity, well, the sorts of services that are provided would range anywhere from, I suppose, the food banks to mental health, access to these programs,
yeah,
and to maybe the school breakfast and lunch programs.
Yeah,
that sort of
I
thing.
mean, some of the key themes that emerged from our community consultations that informed our regional plan. So our regional plan, which is called Bridging the Gap, is completely driven by community input. And some of the themes that came from that were community transportation. So Dial-A-Ride would be an example of one of the partners that we would be working with in that area. Housing, learning, womb to tomb. So it could be about educating parents pre-birth on how to support their children, give their children the best chance of success when they're born, right the way through the different age groups to skills learning for work, for instance. Food security is obviously a big issue, as you mentioned, the food banks and so on.
Literacy.
Yes, literacy being part of that learning package. So those were some of the key themes that came out. And then, things like childcare, some of the things that inhibit people from taking advantage of opportunities that come up.
Right. Now, in addition to, so that's really sort of those services or activities are available, or they're not available, but they're sort of monitored by the Vibrant Communities Charlotte County entity.
Well, we work with our partners. So our network now is about, it's over 150 members, and they come from the 4 sectors. So there are some community members, some from non-profit organizations, some from government, and some from private sector. And we work with those members, and we call them partners when we're actually engaged in potentially either funding an initiative, or we're part of the kind of steering group to actually help get things going. So we would work with those partners to develop different initiatives in those themes that we were talking about. And as part of that, they are required to report their outcomes as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. It would be, I don't know that you have these statistics, and I never mean to put anybody on the hot seat. However, to me, an interesting statistic to see would be the amount of money that is invested in these programs versus the amount of money that actually the province saves by having these programs in lieu of the problems that would have arisen otherwise.
Right.
And I think that those numbers are very difficult to track. However, they have to be tracked at some point to justify continuing the investment.
Yeah.
And I think that they would be very impressive numbers.
Yeah, there is certainly research at the national level, and that can be extrapolated to a certain degree to the provincial level. One of the things, though, that we really want to focus on in this renewal of the provincial plan and therefore our regional plans is to ensure that we are tracking our successes and figuring out if it's a good investment. So, because sometimes you have to learn from your failures. You can't. Not everything is successful, but actually some of your greatest learnings come from those failures. So, we do want to know. We do want to know better. What we invest versus how much we've accomplished. So one of the priorities for the new provincial plan is to focus on establishing those measures of success and figuring out how can we measure the value of what we're getting, the return on investment, essentially, of what we're investing.
Well, that leads me to my next point, and that is that there are a number of other initiatives that are taking place throughout the province, and in fact, I suppose, right across the country, that work rather independently one from the other. And were those, and there may be some duplication of effort there. There may be some duplication of economic support, but were those different factions to come together in a forum, say, of some sort, and compare notes and see how they might work together effectively and perhaps more efficiently, reducing a duplication of effort and money and so forth. I think that would be a next logical step.
Right.
So there are, there are less than a dozen different initiatives. So Is there any has any thought been given to try to coordinate these different groups?
Yeah, I think you know, when you're first starting out, you just want to get something established,
Right.
and you want to find ways of bringing value to the equation. The last thing that we wanted to do was create this new entity, and as you say, either duplicate effort or not necessarily bring value, just be an added layer of red tape or something. So we've really focused on that value equation in the first 18 months, making sure that we are able to bring something to the table. What we see, and part of that is actually encouraging and helping organizations make connections, so that if two organizations are quite separately developing similar initiatives, then we try and link those organizations so that they can share best practice and learn from each other, and maybe maybe increase the impact of what they're doing by coming together.
Yeah.
That's kind of on a very small scale, but what we see as a kind of a future layer of development for the Community Inclusion Network is to bring people together on a larger scale. So bring people together to focus on establishing common goals, agreeing actions that we can all take toward those common goals, and making sure that what we do kind of jives with each other, you know?
Well, there was a meeting not too long ago where a number of stakeholders got together and were given a presentation by government on how successful these various initiatives have sort of been. And there were a lot of people there who were asked to write down a lot of answers to a lot of questions, and it was beautifully handled. And I encourage that sort. I'm big on that sort of thing. I think sort of focus groups are enormously successful.
It was a great evening.
Would you care to share your impressions of the outcomes of that meeting?
I think the important thing to know is that they haven't just fallen into a black hole, never to be heard of again. Though all of the comments and suggestions that were made at these community dialogues, and there were 12, one in each region, have been brought together and have been documented. I believe they're now on the government website for people to see in their raw form, and they're working on. And when I say their raw form, the comments that were made in French are there in French, and the comments that were made in English are there in English. So they're now working on translating both of those so that there's one report in both languages that cover all the comments. So that's what they're doing now. But they have forwarded to us at the regional level all the comments that were made at the dialogue meeting in our region. So we are now working through those to help us review and revise our regional plan. And there were an amazing number of wonderful suggestions and thoughts and ideas and comments. It was such a positive evening. I know you were there, so it was really solutions focused, which was wonderful. It was a very positive evening, and you can see that in this documentation of the comments. People are really keen to find solutions and to maximize opportunities that are there. So what we saw at the provincial level was really confirmation of the kinds of themes that had emerged through the original dialogues in this region, and we had a number of those to shape the original plan. So there was nothing kind of big and surprising, but detailed suggestions that talk to specific ways of maybe developing solutions were really interesting. One of the things that did come out at that provincial level and at the community level that had been raised before, but not with the kind of strength of voice that there was about the need for more community transportation.
Yeah.
So it's become kind of clear that, you know, Charlotte Dial-A-Ride is an incredible asset, and it really makes a difference in our community. But that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
There's more that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so that theme really emerged very strongly, and had done so at previous community meetings that we had over the last kind of 12 months, to the point where a working group has been formed to look at the viability of establishing other forms of transportation, including public transit for Charlotte County. So that's great, because we know that something is already happening in that area. But you know, the housing definitely came out strong. The learning theme, education and training, came out strong. Childcare and so on.
It seems to me that the, you know, when you think about these emerging themes that come through, it's really about connecting, for people to be able to connect to one another. So if that theory is correct, poverty is therefore a very isolating phenomenon.
Right.
I mean, you know, in the old days, even before you and I were born, they didn't have, they had horses and buggies to get around, or you walked. And life was quite different. But we're used to a more modern life, and accessibility to basic services is quite different. And so it's not a privilege anymore to have, say, clean drinking water that you don't have to go to the well to pull out. It's really, it's a basic human necessity, or it's not a right, but it's a basic human necessity. And these kinds of things are beginning to be understood by more people, which is a way of strengthening the communities that we live in. Because after all, you know, the whole purpose of having these meetings, and in fact for even having this show, is to try to raise awareness of these, what I call weak links in the community, so that we can then become part of the solution. We can be the bridge that connects. And this, I've seen this dynamic in not just in Charlotte County or New Brunswick. I've seen it happening in Philadelphia and everywhere else. So it's a real human conundrum that we're in, and I think it's remarkable that we are tackling it in such an aggressive way, and that it's become a real priority. So what would you say would be, if people who are viewing the show had something to take away that they could become involved in? Because there are there are different kinds of things that they could become involved in. How do they find out about the sort of the package, so to speak, that they can kind of pick and choose what they might like to do? Well,
there are a couple of ways that people can actually, you know, make a very direct contact with a resource that's going to help them understand what's going on and what they might be interested in and so on. One of them is to call me on 529-4942, and I'd be more than happy to help anybody explore ways that they could contribute to the movement of reducing poverty. The other way that's not quite ready yet, but is due to be launched on January 1st, is a brand new website called Volunteer Charlotte County. And we've been very fortunate. Again, it's an initiative that came from a group of interested community and network members. And we've been working on it for a while now, but it's looking great. And it's basically a kind of .com for volunteers. So there'll be information about a whole host of different volunteer opportunities that are available, from, you know, from 1 hour to a regular commitment of a number of hours per week. I mean, you know, you can volunteer just as a one-off. It still makes a huge difference. And then volunteers will be able to actually register as an interested volunteer, and you know, some matching can take place. So that's another resource that will be available, and that will be volunteercharlottecounty.ca, but not until January 1st. But you know, it's interesting because in the dialogue, one of the questions that was asked was, how can we as individuals help to reduce poverty and make a contribution to social inclusion, and connectedness. Your earlier point was one of the big themes that emerged from that. It was about looking for ways that we can connect people, connect organizations, connect initiatives, can make people aware of what there is available out there, because we actually have an amazing array of resources available to us in Charlotte County. And I can't tell you how often somebody says to me, I didn't know we had that here. I didn't know about that. How come I didn't know about it? So what we're not doing is a very good job of advertising our wares, so to speak. And so, you know, I can see that the Community Inclusion Network, Vibrant Communities, Charlotte County, is going to have to think of ways that they can bring some value to that too.
Well, maybe because the Vibrant Communities Charlotte County is kind of connected to a larger umbrella that is nationwide. Maybe there'll be some tricks that we can get from other communities. Because I think that the fact that more and more people are focusing on the importance of community, of having a healthy community, and being able to put in place pieces of the puzzle that guarantee sustainability of the community, because that's what we want for our children and our grandchildren, is to have a peaceful world to live in that is free of poverty if possible. And we're certainly making great strides by even addressing this. And the importance of volunteerism can't be stressed, to my way of thinking, enough, because it is inevitable. Just anybody that can do the math at all knows that the government is not going to be able to support all of these initiatives in perpetuity. Nothing can sustain itself in perpetuity without a strong volunteer component. So by encouraging people to become part of the solution, I mean, one way is to make them aware, and then they have choices to make. But another way is for people to be encouraged by their friends or their family. If they may not be aware that such an opportunity exists, maybe somebody else does. And I think by making a little bit more of an effort to find out how they can become involved, it'll benefit the whole province, really. And so the best way to find out about these opportunities, again, then, is to phone you at the moment. You're the central clearinghouse. On
529-4942. And I would certainly, all the information that's going to be on the website, I would have access to all of that. So for now, I can certainly steer people in the right direction. I'm certainly not going to engage each and every one of them in different roles within the community, but I'll be referring them to different kinds of opportunities. So with a brief chat about what their interests are, we can identify some opportunities that would be worthwhile. We have a really serious shortage of volunteers in Charlotte County, and so I think, you know, we need to those of us who believe that that we need to return some of our blessings to our community, that we need to pay back in certain ways.
Yeah.
I think we need to encourage others to think along the same way. I think over time we need to recognize community service as a natural component of each and every one of our lives.
Well, you know, they give out on New Brunswick Day every year in New Brunswick. They give all around the province. They give awards out for people who have been extraordinary in their commitment to volunteerism, which I think it's really important. The thing about volunteerism that I think is the best is that it makes you feel so much better about yourself.
Absolutely.
It's very hard to understand that until you've actually done it.
Yes.
But it does have that kind of an impact.
That's true.
And I hope that people will take advantage of this opportunity, because it is volunteering is an opportunity.
Yep.
It's not a chore, it's not a task, it's not you have to do it, but you do.
Yep.
If you want to be a meaningful member of the community in which you live. And I think that we're getting to be more and more aware of that.
Yeah, hopefully so.
That brings us to the end of this segment of Fundy Tidings.
Right.
And thank you, Pat, for being on the show once again. And thank you for watching the show. I look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Fundy Tidings.